What is going on, everyone? AP over here at Run Pure Sports, bringing to you once again. We got the Lineup Builder Show with our partners, Sabersim. I'm here with my guy, Rubio Dimes. Rubio, it's Monday, coming in off a fun Sunday, fun day of football. How is your Monday going? How was yesterday? How did it end up for you?
Man, I came within inches of 100K yesterday, and it was a brutal beat. Yeah, not a brutal beat because it should have been 15K or whatever. But Jalen Hurts ran it in. It passed my Josh Allen team. They kind of knocked me down. It's about 7 to 8K. And it turns out I was 3 points off first, and I played the Chiefs defense. I played Njoku. I just wanted a little bit more from them, and it would have been a great day. However, we move on. We put ourselves in those positions to have a good time, and that's the best part. We just keep moving forward. Put yourself in that good spot. Maybe it happens again tonight. Maybe it happens again next week too. I mean, the NFL has been fun. Hope you guys had a happy Thanksgiving too, a good Thanksgiving. I know Debo and Brandon Cooks made my Thanksgiving very, very nice. And heading into Sunday, keeping that momentum rolling, and hopefully into Monday as well.
Yeah, I mean, Kansas City's defense was asleep in that first quarter. I'm sure my guy Bobby Boom was going nuts in Discord when Kansas City went down 0-14. Then what happens? They score 31. They go 31-3 straight points. So absolutely shut down the Raiders after that. And then last night was I think a lot of us were on, or yesterday, a lot of us were on the Bills. And Josh Allen just, I mean, you got to feel for the guy at times because he takes all the blame. He takes all the blame, even though a lot of it is on their defense. And so, yeah, what a great game, though. And that's one that I was with you, actually. Like, I had a Josh Allen to Shakir and Kincaid build. And in that build, I had Kyron Williams. I had, I think, Isaiah Pacheco correlated with the Chiefs' defense. Defense sucked. And then who was my other player? I had a mid-tier wide receiver that actually went pretty ham. I can't remember who it was. None of those touchdowns, like, I was like, if we could just get a Kincaid touchdown, if we could just get a Shakir touchdown, and then, in overtime too. But, obviously it fell short. I think it finished around like 190 points or something. So it was up there. Like, the build was up there. It just, didn't get that right connection there at the end. But it was a fun Sunday in Rubio. We have like two awesome slates. We were talking before we got started. I love this game tonight. I love, the pricing around it. We're going to be talking, obviously, about the Monday Night Football game, Bears at the Vikings. Josh Dobbs has been incredible. And then, we're obviously going to be talking NBA later. I'll be back on the Hardwood show. I think it's a 5-game slate. Those are like so perfect. And this slate, I love the matchups. It's going to be a ton of fun. So I'm excited for this Monday. A lot of money to be won. Rubio, let me kick it back to you, though. We got the base build started. We have Sabersim pulled up. That's what you can see here. Walk the people through one, in case we have new people here listening. What is a base build? What are we trying to accomplish by doing a base build? And then what is the base build showing us today?
Yeah, so the base build is what we do. We don't make any changes to the projections, using a combination of RPS and Sabersim. And what we'll do is we'll just go ahead and run 150, which I already did, so we don't have to wait through that. And we want to see where our exposures are at, right? We want to see where the field might land mostly, because a lot of people, come in, they make some of their top projected builds based on the projections, and this is what it does. Basically, the top projected teams across the board. And you're going to see a lot of quarterback captains tonight, and that's because we have a little bit of value. We also have I would say cheaper weapons on the wide receiver side for Minnesota because they were expecting Justin Jefferson to maybe be in. Hawkinson even had a price drop as well. So it's interesting to see where these double quarterbacks lead to. And you'll see this one. Nice 4-2 with Khalil Herbert, who's leading the backfield now with Dante Foreman out. And you even have guys like Roshan Johnson at 3K who are going to step in a little bit more too. And we can definitely have that debate later on too, whether it's Roshan Johnson could see maybe an increased amount of snaps because Dante Foreman's been dominating in that backfield. It's been good to watch. However, we also have more value. Brandon Powell, 2K. We're getting 74% of him, or 72.7% of him AP. And a lot of these builds kind of look like this. The 4-2 with KJ Osborne, TJ Hawkinson, and then these two, right? We keep dropping it down. It's a lot of 4-2s with Herbert, but they make sense and they look good. And a lot of these builds are going to drop down into that cheap wide receiver range. And how do we get different around it? You see popular mid-tier piece like Khalil Herbert is probably going to be high owned today. We can definitely see this the Sabersim ownership too. We can directly compare it. We'd be well overweight on the field with Fields and Powell and Hawkinson in this case. And it's interesting just to kind of break it all down.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought up the stack structure there, or stack type, 3-3, 2-4, 4-2 versus 5-1. I mean, the last 3 Vikings games have been all 3-3s, and we've seen a lot of 2-4s and 3-3s from the Bears side too. One that was actually really interesting was, I think it was the Vikings. They actually 5-1'd the 49ers. It was
that one.
What? Yeah, that was
one.
Yeah, that was and it was due to pricing. It was due to pricing. Obviously, I do know that one. It was little shipper there, but a lot of it was due to pricing, and pricing is important, and that's why we do these base builds to see what the builds are kind of looking at, and then we add in our bias, we run it through the sims, and we get to where we want to be. But when I look at it, I think a few things are interesting. What stood out to me, like Roshan Johnson, obviously with Deontay Foreman out, the price is definitely interesting. And then the pricing overall, too, on the Minnesota side with Justin Jefferson expected back, but obviously not playing tonight. You saw decreases. Jordan Addison's been incredible. He really has. TJ Hawkinson's basically the wide receiver number 2. And then on the other side with Fields back, he went. You have DJ Moore, obviously coming off a monster game with his buddy Fields back. And honestly, like when I look at it, I think you could arguably, say that both teams' tight ends are their wide receiver number 2 is coming in, Cole Kmet and TJ Hawkinson. I think the running back situation is a little muddied, but not really. I mean, you don't really have like Alexander Madison, kind of like in a 65-35 split is what I saw. And his backup looked, pretty good last game too, and Ty Chandler. So the running back situation is going to be kind of interesting. So I think before we started the show, you said, let's go position by position and then factor in some of our bias with how we see the game script panning out. All right, let's start with quarterback. So like, on the surface, when I did my research looking at this, both teams struggled against opposing offenses early on in the season. But over the last 5 weeks, they've been a lot better, much, much improved. However, both running backs here tend to lean on, using the, rushing and everything, especially Dobbs over. I think he has 5 straight touchdowns in the last games. And then we know, obviously, Justin Fields and his rushing upside. So talk to me about the quarterback position. What are you doing with these guys?
Yeah, I mean, it's obvious that both of these guys can use their legs, right? I think Dobbs, he might have been passed by Josh Allen yesterday with how many yards he had, but Dobbs top 3 in the league in rushing yards at the quarterback position. He's not afraid to use his body. They even used him as a running back last game, and then he fumbled on that play after getting speared by, Kareem Jackson or something like that. But ultimately, you get Josh Dobbs here who can run the ball. Has only 10K. His projection is slightly higher than Fields too at the moment. I'm interested to hear your take on that. But Fields looked really good in his first game back last week against Detroit defense. I'm not saying the Detroit defense is great by any means. However, Justin Fields threw an absolute dime to Tyler Scott down the field, and Tyler Scott stopped just barely on the route. It should have been a huge gain. And I just think that Justin Fields is going to crush tonight. I think he knows that Tyson Bagent's behind him, and like Tyson Bagent didn't play that bad, and he wants to prove his worth. I mean, we're kind of entering the phase of Justin Fields' career where it's either put up or shut up. I mean, Bears fans seem to be a little bit tired of him. Just the Bears organization.
I think that's so dumb. Like, I think Justin Fields is very talented.
Yes.
Like, get him in a right program, and I think he excels. Now, I think the Bears are starting to turn around, but like, I don't know. He can't be worried about Tyson Bagent like passing him. Like, I don't know. I mean, is that what the Bears fans are just so like, what have you done for me today? If that's like the case, right?
I will say this: watching that Bears team collapse against the Lions was one of the most frustrating things in the world. It was completely Eberflus's fault. Eberflus was playing to not lose the game. He was running the ball there on third downs, just going for the field goals. He wasn't giving Justin Fields a chance to win it. and it bit him in the ass. I mean, the Lions came back and scored 2 touchdowns late, and by then it was too late for Eberflus to make a move. And I hope the Minnesota Vikings go up early, so that way we can see a lot of Fields garbage time, maybe some stats there late on. But yeah, it's interesting to see Eberflus just absolutely coach his team into the ground.
So I think we both agree on this take. I don't think Dobbs should ever be higher projected than Fields. I get it, like they're favored by 3 points, whatever. I kind of like the Bears tonight, and I think you're right. Like I think Fields, there is pressure on him. He is coming out. He should be motivated. Both of these quarterbacks should be motivated. I kind of like the over tonight too, which I don't know. I mean, sometimes when we do these things and we think we got this perfect script and it doesn't pan out that way. But the number, I'm with Rants in chat. The number seems a little low. How about we do this? Let's get aggressive. Let's bump them up, but then let's bump Fields up higher than Dobbs. Do you like that? Maybe like what, 2 points? Let's get aggressive though. Maybe 2 points higher.
Yeah.
I like that.
Okay. Perfect. Let's do 1.5. Let's just be. You know what? Let's do 2. Let's do 2. Thank you.
And I like and this is all right. So like if you remember, how do you use the content and how do you integrate it with Saber? What's a good standard practice? I forget who I was talking to in DMs yesterday, and I go, you know what? Something basic to do is take the projections. You can even average it with Sabers and ours if you want, but then look at the different content pieces. Maybe you see multiple players in certain course. Give them a bump by 1.5, maybe 2.5 points. Don't go like insane, like 7 points or something like that. I mean, you're just going to get 100% of that player. You know what I mean? Start with gradual bumps, rerun the builds, start adding things in, add in some of your own bias, and see what the sims, where they land you. I think that's an appropriate way as someone new, if you're new getting into this, to use the content and to integrate it with Saber. You got this awesome tool at your disposal. Make sure you're maximizing how you use it. Let's move on to the running back. Now, this is, I think the running back, should we go running back or should we go running back? I think is the toughest thing. Should we save that for last?
Yeah, we can save that for last.
Let's do that. Let's go to receiver.
Catchers. Let's lump in the wide receivers and tight ends together.
Love it. So my take here, just kind of on the surface, is clear, DJ Moore, Jordan. I mean, you could argue TJ Hawkinson, wide receiver 1, but Jordan Addison's been incredible, and he's cheaper than Hawkinson. Got to love those. So, I like the wide receiver 1s and tight ends here. But talk to me, what are you seeing at the wide receiver position?
Yeah, I mean, when you look at it here, it just feels like you have a bunch of guys who don't really match the quarterback's projections for the most part. And that's right. So, I mean, those quarterbacks can run. They can do a lot on their own, and that's always a big deal when you're just looking at projections and stuff. But no one comes up and just, takes the bell as like, oh, man, he's an obvious play. I do really like Jordan Addison here, though. I think that's a good spot for him to get, not back on track because he hasn't been off track all that much, but 8,200 feels a little bit soft. He's just explosive plays just throughout his entire rookie season. I actually think we bumped him up quite a few points here to 15 range. I think these are all 2 or 3 points a little bit too low if we're projecting the quarterbacks high. And I think that we're both on the same page and hoping this game goes over. And I think even DJ Moore has a lower projection. I think that's lower than the field completely too. Moore, get him just above Addison and stuff. And then this is where I kind of fall apart, AP, because I like Brandon Powell's projection where it's at, right? We can bump him up just slightly just to show we changed it. Then all of these guys kind of had their red flags, right? Cole Kmet, it's kind of touchdown or bust with him for the most part. I don't think he has a great floor with Fields as the quarterback compared to when Bagent was, because Bagent would always look Cole Kmet's way. He wouldn't do the same to DJ Moore, but that's obviously on the pricing difference, right? KJ Osborne's a tough click, 5,600, but we get lower ownership. Darnell Mooney, another guy who was better with Bagent. I guess just better with Bagent, in this small sample that we had, but it felt like Bagent looked more toward Mooney. And then these cheap wide receivers, I don't really love them. I don't like these tight ends too much down here either, and I'm interested to hear your take on them.
Yeah, so one thing that I found, Enequis St. Brown, he's starting to get more snaps than Tyler Scott. So you're seeing his, opportunities go up, and being on the field, and Tyler Scott going down. I'm not saying bump up St. Brown, but I am saying maybe we bump down Tyler Scott just a little bit. We don't want to X him out or anything like that, but maybe bump him down slightly. I'm fine. Maybe we maybe we give Cole Kmet just a slight bump down. But honestly, what you've done right there kind of fits with what I'm thinking. I love the wide receiver ones and the tight ends. And Cole Kmet, yeah, he definitely needs to get in the box, but it does fit our script. Do we trust? So the secondary pieces, KJ Osborne is just, I mean, he's one I don't know about you, but I don't want to like full fade him or completely discount him, but I'm with Jerker. You know, it's almost like Brandon Powell's been better than KJ Osborne. So I don't know. What's your thoughts there? What if we just, all right, so Brandon Powell's 2K. What if we just project them closer to each other? Like KJ Osborne slightly above Brandon Powell. Or would that be too low of a bump? Because if we bump them like down too much, we're just not, I mean, we might as well just like get rid of them. You know what I mean?
Powell's already at like 7.5, so they were already pretty close to each other. When we look at our exposures, right, 72% for Powell, 15%. This is just the base bill. We haven't done any sims yet. So they were already pretty close. So let's get them even closer, because I do think Powell is someone that Dobbs looked to quite a bit. It feels like Dobbs has a little bit more trust in Powell than he does in KJ Osborne. And that's not to say, like, you know, playing time and stuff. You always want the player who plays more on the field, and that's Osborne. But we'll give Osborne just a slight edge. But I think Powell gets looked at over the middle quite a bit tonight. And 2K is just a laughable price, too.
Yeah, and I mean, you could almost lump him right there with Roshan Johnson. We'll get to the running backs when we talk to him, but Roshan Johnson, 3K. So maybe some leverage opportunities there with a guy like Roshan. But the fact is, when I look at this slate, I see a lot of skill position players that are arguably underpriced, and we want to find a way to get these best players in to create a very high floor, high ceiling combination within our builds. Like that is our, like, I don't think this is going to be a slate where I should knock on wood, but like defenses and stuff. And I don't even know if I like kickers that much. I just love how the pricing is on these skill position players. So like that top build right there, I mean, that thing looks pretty tasty outside of the fact that we don't have, you know, too many skill position players from, you know, the Bears side. But I do like how this sets up right here. So any other, like, go ahead.
Real quick, I just want to mention these things, and I'll dive deeper into the playbook. And remember, we still have Giblets 44 active. It might remain active today. You never know. But if you can use it for 44% off your first week or month here at Run Pure Sports. Snap counts real quick. Tyler Scott, 36% of the snaps last week. Don't forget, they were ahead most of the second half. They were running the ball a little bit more. St. Brown, 43% of the snaps. So those are guys where, like, you know, I definitely want them above a guy like Robert Tonyan, only played 17% of the snaps, right? And just to kind of just put this in perspective too, like I don't want to not have them when, like, you know, we get them so close to these really bad, like, you know, guys who probably never see the field, like Mercedes Lewis. How many snaps did he play last game? He played 40. Let's get Mercedes Lewis up there for a goal line touchdown. Velus Jones, I don't even know if he played much at all, so we'll get him lower too. Josh Oliver.
He hasn't played in 2 games.
Yeah, perfect. So we'll get Josh Oliver in there. So yeah, just bumping these guys up to where, like, hey, like they're still usable, but we don't want to have them hitting a ton.
Right.
Yeah, I think that's good. I think we can move on to the running back spot too now. All right, do you want to do defense and kickers first?
Yeah, let's look at defense kickers. I mean, both defenses have been they've been better, and their price tags are fair, like somewhat cheap, and we don't want to just completely ignore them because we've seen all it takes is one pick six, and you know, and then you can have them with the opposing, you know, QB with like there's a lot of script. So like the wrong move is just to like fully X them out. So Greg Joseph 5K, I would say that price tag is up there. That's more on the expensive side, but 3.8. I mean, for a Bears defense against Josh Dobbs, I mean, I don't know. I don't think that's like I think that's a fine value. I mean, why it was Wiley on? It was the Chiefs defense against Philly. Now, Chiefs defense has been really good, but weren't they like in that same range, 3.8K? And Wiley talked about on that show how it was arguably one of the better values and allowed you to fit a lot of these skill position players into your lineups, and that's what ended up being optimal. So, like, I don't think we necessarily want to fully discount these defenses that are on the cheaper side.
Yeah, 100%. And I do want to mention, like, just talking about the kickers real fast. I think Joseph's fine at an 8-point projection. Eberflus showed last week that he's not afraid to kick field goals and stuff. So I'll give Cairo Santos. They're in a dome as well in Minnesota. But I'm with you on these defenses, right? Fields can make mistakes. Josh Dobbs can make mistakes. These are not guys who are just perfect quarterbacks who are going to just take care of the ball the entire time. Josh Dobbs makes some crazy throws. And I like watching Josh Dobbs because his games are entertaining. Justin Fields is behind a cardboard offensive line sometimes, and ultimately he can take a lot of sacks. You do not want to X out the defenses tonight.
I think we bump them up both up slightly. Like, yeah. I think we give them a slight bump up. And you think of like these boring games where that's where you want to play defenses. Not the case at all. I mean, look at the game on Friday. I mean, we saw two defensive touchdowns in that game. So, like, what was the optimal lineup? I know DJaz. She was optimal, or she won it, right?
Yeah, it was 5-1 with the Jets defense.
5-1 with the Jets defense. Yeah, that's it. I mean, that build is. I mean,
my favorite part.
Got it done, but it's like still it was an entertaining game, and so you just don't want to like fully ignore, discount these defenses, especially on a slate like this one. When now if the Vikings defense was like 5.5K or something, like the one I think that kind of tilted me was the in Showdown on Thanksgiving. I think it was Dallas. Weren't they like 7K or something? I definitely was under on that because you had to have a defensive touchdown. I'm like, you know what? Maybe one game. We'll have one game, just one, where Dallas doesn't score a defensive touchdown. I was definitely wrong there. Yeah, and they were like Rubio. They were like 45, 50% up at like 7, 8K, whatever they were. I thought that was kind of tilted.
Well, I was at 20K at the start of the fourth quarter. Mangone was winning 77K almost the entirety of the second half. And he was even winning 30K before that defensive touchdown. And I just it was so tilting. Because it had to be Bland of all people. And I'm not saying, but like the record breaker and stuff, it was in the script. Yeah. Like I should have read the script that the NFL gave out. You know, Bland would break the record on Thanksgiving for most touchdowns. I mean, it was too poetic not to play. I mean, that's my bad. You know, I forgot to read the script.
It is so funny that after that, the whole team can jump into that, whatever it was. They can, you know, get a turkey leg out, eat it, do their end zone dances, and that's not a flag, but if you give a player the peace sign as you're walking into the end zone, it's a flag. It's taunting. So, I mean, those rules are so insane.
Yes. All right, let's do the one that we've been waiting for. Let's get this running back position done and dusted. It's interesting. So I want to go over some snap counts real quick. Ty Chandler was the way better back last game, but it didn't matter.
Yep.
Alexander Madison got 48 snaps. I think Ty Chandler got like 23. It was some large disparity. And like you said earlier, I think you said 65-35 kind of split. Anticipate the same tonight. The Bears are a defense that you can run on a little bit. You know, it sucks playing Alexander Madison. I don't like doing it. I don't want to ignore it. And I don't want to give him a bump down just because I think he's bad, because it's too good of a spot to ignore. Ty Chandler was the optimal guy over Jordan Addison last game. That ended up being a solo winner of 300K. And it was just that one pivot. Obviously, he got a large chunk of his points on the fake punt, too. What was it, like a 30 or 40-yard run on the fake punt?
Yeah.
But, you know, I still want to bump these guys up just a tad. We weren't getting much of them at all. We were only getting 5% of Ty Chandler. And in Madison's case, we were getting 31%. And it's interesting because we bumped up both quarterbacks. And we bumped up the Vikings running backs slightly. It'll be interesting to see how Sabersim kind of does with the contest sims with these quarterbacks and running backs here. And then the running back situation, after Dante Foreman went down, Dante Foreman played 18 snaps, 24% total. It was Khalil Herbert who got a bulk of the work. I think he had 16 carries or something like that with 43% of the snaps. And then it was Roshan Johnson who cleaned up the other 33%. It seems like this is going to be a two-way split. You might see a little bit of Travis Homer, and we will definitely bump him up accordingly.
Yeah,
make sure that we get a little bit. CJ Ham, see ya. And then I'm interested to hear your take on Herbert and Roshan Johnson, though.
Yeah, it's. I think we don't want to ignore the running backs here. I know we like the receivers, the tight ends, etc. I just think both teams are middling against the run, and it would not surprise me to see one. I don't know if I'm going to have I guess once we run this, we'll see. But on the surface, and I haven't ran any builds either. But my process is very similar to what we're talking about on the show. I could see, like, ideally, if one of these guys lands in each of my builds, filled with some of these other skill position players, I would be fine with that. So like I don't want to fully bump down these running backs, and kind of what we're doing right now too fits with that over script that we were talking about. And I even think that like even in an under script, this can, it still could fit. Look at the Chargers last night. Like they what fumbled. They had that egregious no call penalty, no call there in the first quarter. Now I'm going to tilt myself because I was heavy on the Bolts last night. He was like 2 steps out of bounds, and the guy just gets annihilated and no flag. And this is the Chargers that I'm talking about, a team that I hate.
Tell you, these AFC North teams, the Steelers and the Ravens, get the white glove treatment from the referees all the time. It's sickening. The Steelers.
Mahomes does too. You got to throw Mahomes out there. He's in that Brady category.
I'm cool with Mahomes getting calls. I'm not cool with the Ravens and Steelers getting every call every single week. It's just sad to see. The Steelers threw a backward pass and somehow it goes to review and isn't rolled a backward pass. They get a first down. They don't get a holding. I'm done with the Steelers and Ravens. Whenever you see them on a slate or whatever, just assume that they're getting the calls. It's sickening.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I'm fine keeping Khalil Herbert where he's at. I don't, between him and Roshan, I know our guy JSU loves Roshan, or maybe that was more of a best ball thing, who knows. But the thing with these running backs too is keep in mind, you got on the Bears side, you got Justin Fields. So can always in the goal line, in the red zone, get vultured by Justin Fields rushing for a touchdown. That's in the realm of, outcomes. So that is correct, Eric A. That is definitely correct. So I don't know. I'm fine keeping I like bumping up Roshan just a little bit. I think you did that, and I'm fine with Herbert where he's at. What's your thoughts on that?
I'm with you, and I think we can go ahead and run the Sims too while I make my case for Roshan as well. The case for Roshan here. All right, Khalil Herbert isn't the most sure of hands, at all. He's not the best pass catcher out of the backfield. He can be utilized in the backfield. I think in the preseason, he made a big play out of the backfield too with this. And I think it was a screen pass that he took for 75 yards. I think in a trailing script, it benefits Roshan Johnson a bit. And I could be wrong, right? I could be wrong. It could be Khalil Herbert who still gets pass work because Dante Foreman, at the end of the day, he was still getting a couple catches out of that backfield. But ultimately, I do think that Roshan is a guy who might be benefited by a trail script. Maybe he gets utilized a bit more. 33% of the snaps last week, despite Dante Foreman playing 24%. Maybe it's closer to 60-40 because we have to remember Dante Foreman didn't just come in and do a middling job as a backup, right? Now, he came in and he took over that backfield. He was truly the alpha. It sucks that he got hurt, but, we get Roshan Johnson, Khalil Herbert with a huge price disparity, and maybe they're like, hey, it's the rookie. We want to give him a chance. We're 12 weeks into the season now. Maybe his work starts to trend up. It's the case that I made for Bijan Robinson. By the Falcons just came off their bye in week 11. The Bears bye week is at week 13, I believe, right? So we are 1 week away, from this bye week. Maybe they want to, get Roshan a little bit more work going into the bye week. And then after the bye week, we'll get to see a lot more Roshan Johnson. We want to play running backs right after the bye, right? Rookie running backs right after the bye.
Yeah.
It benefited a guy like Bijan Robinson just this Sunday. Maybe the same could be made going for Roshan here. I'll buy a week early, but I could jump in on it.
Yeah, I'm with you, and here's the thing. It's this is why we saved it for last. It's when I did my research and hey, got it all done before the show, which Rubio, that's like a win in itself. And part of that was due to only having 5 NBA games tonight. I wake up and I got to get my kids to school and stuff like that. But then I do my prelim NBA stuff and then NFL showdown. But yeah, I got most of my stuff done. I just was kind of stumped on what to do with the running back situation. One other thing I want to do too is take my optimal lineup study, and I want to in these situations, which they don't come around too often, but tonight we have one. So I would compare. We have 2 running backs that they can get it done on the ground. Am I going to put them up in the Josh Allen type of category where you get these a high number of double quarterback optimal lineup builds? Not necessarily, but I could see it happening tonight for sure. And so one thing I'm curious on, and I need to do a better job at like saving, salary history. Like I would be curious, how are these quarterbacks from a pricing standpoint in comparison to what if Mahomes was on the slate? What if, Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts, where would those guys be priced at? How significant? And I'm not trying to say that these two quarterbacks are like in the same category. Not what I'm saying at all. But what I'm saying is
they're better than Mahomes. No.
Yeah, there you go. Well, I mean, Mahomes has been run like, when you're running. Actually, Rashee Rice, I should have stuck with him as my play of the day yesterday. I was seriously, but like one of these wide receivers has to step up. And the only one I could see it being is Rashee Rice. So he was in my core at least, but I went with Kelsey. And Kelsey had a good day, but the script just wasn't there. He needed one or two more catches to get over 100 yards. I think he finished with like 6 or 7 catches for like 89 yards or something like that. No touchdown. But Justin Watson, I mean, we didn't think Justin Watson was going to be kind of that main guy. It has to be Rashee Rice. Who knows what? I mean, Tony obviously out right now, but what a disaster! They're going to need someone else to step up. Or yeah, I mean, as a Chiefs fan, do I feel super confident? No, but I still think they're the team to beat. Just because Mahomes has proven that he's done it, so he's obviously the guy to beat. But I do think the AFC is far more wide open. So, but I mean, you get what I'm saying. Going back to the pricing thing, because if it were a Jalen Hurts and you see those when those teams play each other, you see double captain be optimal quite often. And you don't have to go back very far with Josh Dobbs. It was just last game against the Denver Broncos. It was Josh Dobbs captain with Russell Wilson in the flex. So we had a double quarterback build be captain there as well.
Yeah, no, it's very interesting. I mean, I like double quarterback builds. We think the game goes over, so hopefully that we get a double quarterback build tonight. But even when you have 2 great quarterbacks like Herbert and Lamar last night, Lamar not finding the optimal. That's been the case for Lamar this season. Fraud.
And I do think that looking at that defense, what was it, 3-8? I mean, you could see like a build be optimal with all skill position players on one defense. Like that would not surprise me at all too. So, and this is why I love doing this. So explain to people what's going on. You click the button there. Can you because I know we're picking up some new viewers too. Yeah. Can you walk them through kind of what's going on here?
So when we do these, we just send 5,000 lineups using Sabersim's sim feature. Basically, what we did had 150. It gave us 5,000 lineups, picks about the best 150 based on the parameters that we set, right? Which is just this. We have tournament entry. We have the sim diversity very high, so it basically picks out single game scores. So it could have a game where Justin Fields dropped 30, and then it isolates it to let's see how Justin Fields dropped 30. Who did well in that game, right? It's probably going to be DJ Moore. It's probably going to be Cole Kmet and stuff. And then what we did is I added contest from the all contest selection here in Sabersim. And I added 3 contests that we simmed. So basically what it does, it has a pool, like the field lineups, right? It basically predicts what the field lineups are going to be played and what the grades it as basically. So when I go down here and I can sort by win rate for the 500K to first contest tonight, this lineup.
Look at that build.
Yeah, across the with 100,000 sims, wins 0.53% of the time. It's DJ Moore.
I mean, that's like textbook right there. Like, yeah, it's going to be duped. Like, that's going to be duped a ton. Like,
and well, so despite having a high win rate, right? The risk-adjusted ROI at 507.8%. So basically, that just how much it wins, right? How much worthy of it. It basically says the dupes are way more drastic than probably would recommend, right? It's only a 500% ROI despite having, the best win percentage on the entire slate. This one, 0.31%, it dupes 0 times according to the sim lineup across, 10,000 field lineups or whatever. And this is
look at that Bears defense right there. That's what I'm talking about, baby.
Oh, that's exactly what you just said. Look at that. That's nice. That is nice.
Yeah.
3 skill players right there. Basically on the Viking side, and then you run it back with the what do they call it? Correlation breaker with the Bears defense. How many people are going to play the Bears defense when you have Addison, Powell, and Dobbs? It's not going to be a ton, and you get the 2 best players on the Bears. That's a good team, and I can definitely see why
it's a really good team.
And it's not just for the 500K to first contest, right? We can do the same for single entry. For single entry, we can do win rate in this one. And, instead of that usual build that we just saw, it changes. It's Dobbs, Fields, Powell with the Vikings defense, Addison and Hawkinson. So it's a Vikings onslaught, but Fields gets enough on the ground or through the air that he's able to, be the one bear to kind of get it done, which, again, correlation breaker in a sense for how many people are going to run Fields naked in a 5-1. Not a lot.
Yeah, and for anyone like you brought up a really good point. So he's obviously sending multiple different contests, and anyone curious, like if you're out there and you follow my single entry 3 max showdown piece of content, I do my macro research, kind of what I call it, and then I add some slight bias, but I use the RPS projections, and then I adjust things according to some things that stood out to me through my research process. Then I'm running it through here, and I pick out the single entry and 3 max contests, and that's how I'm great. I'm actually using this to help build the content too. So it's not just, if you're out there and you're looking at it, know that it's not just random. I'm actually running it through this, and I'm pulling out the best players to target for single entry and 3 max, pieces of content. So can you use it for, larger field stuff too? Yeah, you definitely could. I'm still trying to highlight the best plays, but that's kind of a little bit of an insight into the build process there. So Rubio, back to you. I love what we're looking at here. Now, are you still running 2 uniques?
Yes. Tonight, I think the case could be made for 1 because Powell is such a stud. However, I do want to, kind of disrupt the captain pool. So you'll see when we do 1 unique, it is concentrated on 75%, 76% actually of Justin Fields and Josh Dobbs captains. That's a little bit high. I love them, but I do want to mix in a little bit more Addison, DJ Moore, even a guy like Madison and Hawkinson too, where I don't know. I think they have a good chance, and I still get 56% of of quarterback captain, which I'm more than happy with.
And so I'm typically running between 50 and 75 builds, and so a standard for me is I'm almost always using 2 uniques because it helps to diversify my lineups even more. So in my mind, if I'm running 75, I'm still competing against people running 150. And so, yeah, you could make the argument to get a little bit more aggressive, but I still want to make sure that I have a well-diversified portfolio of builds, if you want to call it that. And you hit the nail on the head, especially on a slate like this, where I do think that there are a lot more captains that could be viable tonight, for sure.
So here we have a good question here. Now, if you're running 20 teams instead of 150, how many uniques would you use? When I do, it's kind of more on comfort. I would do 2 uniques still. Check it out with 1 unique, right? It still concentrates on Fields, Dobbs, Addison, right? When I do 2 uniques, it drops Field 15%, gives me a little bit more of this kind of spread out structure, right? And then same thing, we still get double quarterback a ton of the time, right? We still get Josh Dobbs almost locked in because we bumped the quarterback so high. That's the adjustments that we made. I think 2 uniques is always a good thing. I think even when you're doing 20 lineups, I think 2 uniques is always the bread and butter. Because you're not having to pull from, not to mention that, you can go up to 4 uniques almost with 20 lineups. Not that I'd recommend it, but you can do 2 or 3 when you're running fewer lineups, just because it gives you a little bit more of a spread in the lineups that you're choosing from, especially in Sabersim. It's pulling from, your 5,000 lineups, right? You can always make sure your numbers are looking good based on how you project the slate and whatever numbers that you feel comfortable at too. I always do 2, but you can do even 3 when you're doing 20 max. It's not that bold at all.
I also think, like, Luce, just to kind of expand on the question, the matchups and who's playing really depends as well. So yesterday, I played the showdown slate. It was the main showdown slate for the afternoon wave. Obviously, it was the Philly Bills game, and I think I ran 30 builds in it. I think I did 2 uniques, but what I also did is I limited my captain pool to 3 players: Stephon Diggs, Josh Allen, and Jalen Hurts. So we had 2 teams where it was highly probable that I felt, when you looked at the showdown pricing for that specific slate, that it was likely going to be one of those 3 players captain. And so since I wasn't maxing it, I wanted to have a really tight captain pool. Tonight, though, is kind of different because I truly think having a wider captain pool, there are so many players that could be captain viable tonight. Would you agree with that, Rubio? I mean, it just from a pricing standpoint, I think Fields or Dobbs could be captain viable. I think both wide receiver 1s, DJ Moore or Addison, Addison, especially because of the discounted price, could be captain viable. And then the tight ends too. Like I think that both tight ends could be.
Yeah, 100%. What I want to do is let's take out some captains real quick. We had a couple, Ty Chandler in there and stuff I don't love. I'm just kind of clicking out. If you see anyone I clicked out that you didn't really want clicked out, let me know. But I think like you keep it to this pool here. I think these 8 could probably make the most sense. It's going to add one more as the Vikings defense. Go ahead and take that one back out. And I think this captain pool that we have is really good.
Yeah, I think I'm surprised we didn't see any. I know it might be egregious, but I'm focused on the price here. Like the Bears defense. Like I'm surprised we didn't get any Bears defense captains that were falling in there. Just because it's like, if Dobbs threw a pick 6 at the start of the game, those Bills are going to be sitting pretty good because then it's a value piece. And I'm not saying I love that for a captain route, but it's like how many times have we seen it this season? I mean, it seems like it continues to happen. And especially with these quarterbacks that look, I mean, it's Josh Dobbs at the end of the day. He's been awesome. He's been so good for the Vikings, but it's going to catch up to him eventually. So do we, within our pool of 5,000 builds, did we get any? We had to have had some Bears defense captain.
We had right? 29
wow.
teams, 5,000.
So click on the spyglass thing. Click off of that. We had 29 with that. Oh yeah, 29 overall. Okay. So can you click on and then look at I want to see what those builds look like.
You got a script with Fields and DJ Moore still doing the work, and then you get the Bears defense and a 2,500 leave salary here. It would be super unique.
I don't know if I like that salary. Like I almost like filling up the. Well, I guess if you're talking, uniques, and that's the one problem with that build too is probably would be more likely to be duped because you can fit all the studs in, right?
Well, I mean, it did leave 2,500. I don't think it would be too duped. I mean, this one leaves 700. It said in the sim dupes too that this one gets duped one time, right? Out of the however many lineups it is, this one gets duped 0 times, right? The one that gets duped one time, you can see it why, right? You get the Bears studs, you get the 2 best players in the Vikings in a floor script or whatever. Yeah. I think this one would be highly more likely to be duped, and it only leaves 700 as well.
Gotcha. No, I'm not saying I'm running any, Bears captains scripts. I could we've seen so many crazy things happen to where it would not surprise me at all.
Yeah, I'm with you. I do want to mention real quick too, when I have Brandon Powell, he projects really well as a cheap guy, right? One thing to kind of note, let me get out of pool. Let me go to my lineups. When you have a Brandon Powell captain, this kind of goes into the case in point with Jalen Guyton, where I had him at captain last night and ended up working out, ended up in cashing, despite him only getting 1 catch on 5 targets. One of them should have been a touchdown too. It pisses me off. Herbert's kind of cheeks, I'll say it. I think Powell, you get these funnels, right? You get these dupes. It's kind of high. You get a really good team, but you have to remember if you got first place for this lineup, anyone would take 10K, right? Anyway, I would take 10K at one. But your dupe, it's a 500K to first contest, right? You're not going to get 500K by running these lineups. You're not going to get a solo winner. And a big reason of that is because when you do Powell captain, funnels into the same place, and these builds look really good with him. I can't lie. I mean, this is a great build. Or if you were convinced that Powell's going to get 4 or 5 catches tonight, like why wouldn't you run this one in single entries and stuff? It would be a great build to kind of work with. But you do funnel into the same thing that it cuts your ceiling in half almost, way more than in half. Yeah,
no, I agree, and that's why that one build looks so interesting too. With we're using a lot of salary, but it swapped out Powell for the Bears defense or something like that. I can't even remember what the build was that we're talking about a little while ago, but it was just making one of those just very unique changes to get different.
I just want to mention that, Josh. So like the Powell hype started to sound like Guyton yesterday. I'll play Guyton again in that spot 100 times out of 100. You had a way too cheap of wide receiver too, got 5 targets, and the biggest discrepancy. This isn't like anything where he was much higher owned in high stakes than he was in low stakes. It's usually a good sign that you're on a play that the sharp, is on, right? I'm not saying that's like, the Bible or whatever. You always want to have that be the case. But Guyton was so cheap, and, we saw it. It takes one opportunity. He's a deep burner too. A lot of his targets down the field. Should have had a touchdown too. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and make excuses for him or whatever, but I'll make that play 100 times out of 100 when you got a wide receiver too as cheap as him. Brandon Powell's not the wide receiver too. It's Osborne. However, we have a good sample of Powell producing with Justin Jefferson out. They priced him as if Jefferson would be in, and that's just not the case. And we got to take advantage of cheap guys that DK gives us. It's something that you can't really ignore on a slate with two quarterbacks that we think are going to produce.
A few last things too. Speaking of cheap guys, how much Inequus St. Brown did we get, and then how much Darnell Mooney? Two cheap receivers on the Bears side. Just curious because
we get 16% Mooney. And that's a big reason why I want to mention that. That's because of the uniques. If I did one unique, we would probably fall. No, we still get 16%. I'm surprised by that. We get a lot of Mooney despite having a terrible projection. So, but 8% or 5% St. Brown. So,
can you click on the St. I'm curious to see what the St. Brown builds look like. Sometimes, like, you want to look at these and review them just like we are here, and you'll get some funky. Like, what I wouldn't want is like St. Brown plus, multiple pass catchers. And then maybe it's like fading, Fields or something like that. Like, you wouldn't want to build like that. So, but that one does. I mean, you get too cheap. I mean, that build's kind of interesting there. It's fading Kmet and DJ Moore. And, if Fields throws a deep one to Mooney and then, hits St. Brown, I mean, it's an interesting build. I think it's definitely viable. Double quarterback like we talked about. You got the, wide receiver one and, obviously a beast of a tight end. I like that build quite a bit. What's your thoughts on that one?
So when you look up leverage, if you look up the definition of leverage, this build would probably pop up. You fade the top two passing options of the Bears, right? You get fade Kmet and more. You also fade the chalky running backs in terms of Roshan Johnson and Herbert, who are going to garner some ownership. And you plug in two really low-owned pieces who correlate really well with your quarterback. It's not the most infeasible thing in the world. And it's not going to be duped a ton. And it's one of those builds where it's unique despite using 49.8 of its salary. It's definitely worth a stab, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think so too. Can you scroll down just a little bit more? Let's see a few. So you got one with Powell in there too. That one makes a lot of sense. With the Dobbs quarterback, Hawkinson. So yeah, I mean it does feel like a slate where one of these value pieces is going to be the difference tonight. It just, and there's a lot to choose from.
Yeah, 100%. It's interesting too, because like St. Brown just, not a great producer by any means and stuff. You can use it as a direct pivot off like Powell if you really want to get different. If you think you're being a little bit too chalky or whatever, I think Powell's a better play straight up. But we got to play for like the 1% scenarios. I mean, it's one game. Anything can happen. If it was played out over Sims like 10,000 times or whatever, yeah, Powell would win every time. But it's one game. What if St. Brown kind of deep ball or whatever? Just trying to get unique, trying to get the solo winner up top is always a big deal. It's just something that we got to take advantage of.
Yes, sir. All right, so we got later on today, we got the NBA Hardwood. I'll be back on with my guys Mangone and Draft Cheat. That's going to be at 4:45 Eastern. Then after that, we got the Up to Lock show with we got JSU, Big T, and the Prez, Wiley. They will be, then I think we're going back, and it will be free. The Monday Night Print Factory taking us all the way up to this game locking. So make sure that you stay on or you come back with us later today. Tons and tons of content. Again, I love this NBA slate. 5 games, perfect amount of games. And I think tonight's NFL game is going to be really interesting. So pretty excited here for a Monday, Rubio. So as we get out of here, can you give us a final take? What's your final take for tonight's game?
Final take, we have the quarterbacks bumped so high up. One guy that if I were making my lineups right now, I'd bump up is just Hawkinson a little bit. The flow chart, the Big T post, you have one for NBA too, which I absolutely love. It shows, how these teams do against the position they're defending against. And the Bears really don't defend the tight end too well. Hawkinson does have a high projection here. It could be the odds of just, saying like, hey, you already have Hawkinson high. You might not want to be jamming him in more, but I do want a little bit more Hawkinson. I think this game goes over. I think both quarterbacks are in the optimal today, hopefully, knock on wood. And ultimately, I'm going to go with a Vikings win, but it's going to be a close game, and it's 27-21. That's my guess.
I like it. I'm going to take the other side since we've agreed so much throughout the season. I'm going to say, and I'm biased towards, our guy Big T's 50K best ball team. I'm going to say the Bears win and Fields connects to DJ Moore and Cole Kmet, baby. So that's a script that it's win-win. It's win-win if that all happens. We all win, right, Rubio?
Oh God, you know who produced that? He never would have thought when it came back alive was Jalen Hyatt getting the 5 for 1.
No, I mean, have we gotten an update? I mean, we need to get an update on that. I mean, Jalen Hyatt went. I mean, he nuked yesterday over Hundy from little Danny DeVito throwing him the ball.
Zay Flowers 2 tutties.
Oh, that team has to be mint, man. It has to be and I guess tonight. Well, after tonight, we'll get the update. So if Fields, all right, now I'm all in. Now I'm definitely all in. That's what I'm going to be rooting for tonight. So Fields to DJ Moore to Cole Kmet. That's what's going on here. Oh man, it's going to be a fun one. Hopefully, we just get a good game. Like last night's was kind of boring, but honestly, it was fine. It is what it is. So. I'm not one that like bitches about these boring games. So anyways, I digress. For Rubio Dimes, I'm AP. Let's run Pier.